Burns, and welcome to The Network, hard talk with a matrix of newsmakers. The headlines. Europe's powerfrau, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, has wielded her country's power to tackle a financial crisis, refugee crisis, and a crisis in the EU itself. But her popularity has suffered as the refugee crisis deepens, and the auto industry struggles with an emissions scandal. The far right is on the rise. The troubles at home could undermine her political clout, just as the Global Climate Summit in Paris approaches and the UK considers whether to exit from the EU. If the woman Germans call Mutti is in trouble, is Europe too? There's even a rebellion within her own party at home. And if not Merkel as Europe's leader, who then? Now, wired into this edition of the network here at the European Parliament in Brussels, Jo Leinen. He's a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee here in the European Parliament, member of the Social Democratic Party, which is a member of the coalition, the Grand Coalition in Germany. Peter Kleppe from Open Europe, a nonpartisan and independent policy think tank. And Stephen Brown, Deputy Managing Editor at Politico Europe, an online and weekly publication. Welcome to all of you. A question starting with Jo. Are Merkel's days numbered? How much longer can she remain in power the way things are going right now?
There is chaos in the Christian Democratic Party. There are two parties in one. The one part wants to close the borders. The other is looking for further thousands and 10,000s of refugees and how to integrate them in our society. So there is a huge difficulty for Merkel to govern this situation.
But will she survive?
That's an open question. I think that the hospitality that we have shown is good, but it has limits. If we have to take another million of people and over winter to integrate them in our cities and villages, it poses a real problem for her party to accept and to adapt.
So a big question mark, and I must mention that we did invite the Christian Democratic Union. They were not able to attend, so we have a member of the governing coalition on the Social Democratic side. To you, Peter, what do you think? How long is she going to last?
Well, you can see that she's having a real problem in terms of popular support. Her key policy this summer to bail out Greece is not supported by a majority of the German people.
Stephen, what do you think?
Personally, I think it's you shouldn't underestimate Merkel's ability to pull through this one. I think she's got an awful lot of admiration from abroad from what she's done. She's having a tough time convincing the German public, voters, taxpayers, that it's worth doing. But I think she'll do it, actually.
Okay, now this refugee crisis, Merkel was criticized at the beginning of being too tough on the refugees, and then later to be too soft. Has she failed to strike a happy medium, or is that even possible? Jo.
Now, she opened the bottle and doesn't know for the time being how to close it again. So, of course, the message come to Germany, and there's a welcome culture spread all over the Middle East. And, of course, we cannot integrate millions of people in one country in Germany. So her big task is to look for European solidarity. Does she get the European Union to act and to work? And that's the test for her ability to lead this policy.
A test of leadership, and also I think she's been making the argument that if you do close the borders too fast, you could cause the Balkans to explode. What do you think, Stephen?
I think that's one of the risks. I think the other thing is she may have spotted an opportunity. There is this argument, possibly optimistic, that like the United States, when it welcomed a mass wave of immigration, that gave it a huge boost to its growth. It could be the case with Germany, which has a chronic shortage of labour at the moment. Maybe these are the people who are going to fill that after a couple of years, which is going to take to integrate them and teach them German and bring them into the workforce.
But isn't this playing into the hands? How much is this playing into the hands? It is playing into the hands of the far right, Peter.
Well, fundamentally, I think immigration is a very good thing, of course. But I think what you see now is that the limits are being reached, and Germany's policy has been troubled by a whole set of taboos. For example, first, Germany did not want to declare Turkey a safe country. Now they refuse to discuss options like the Australian approach, although this has been saving lives. So I think as long as this doesn't change, it's not going to be possible to guard the external borders of the Schengen zone.
Okay, let me stay on this far-right question, Jo. How do you see this? How is the far-right going to benefit from this, and how much is this threatening the Grand Coalition?
Yeah, luckily we didn't have a far right like we see it in other countries, but
they're rising in the polls.
Yes, it's now coming. It has already reached in the polls the level of Die Linke, the left party.
Yep.
And of course, that will continue, and it affects, in the first place, the Christian Democratic Party, the ruling party.
So that's going to push them to the right.
Yeah, we have a test in March, two major elections in Baden-Württemberg and Rheinland-Pfalz, and that's, I think, the turning point where politics in Germany is going.
But could this, and let me go to Stephen, could this cause, if the Christian Democrats have to move to the right, could this split the government?
Well, I think Jo's party leader, Sigmar Gabriel, pointed out that these are people who need some sort of representation. Yeah, the right-wing people, they're people with this anti-immigrant feeling. It's difficult at the moment for the CDU to absorb them because their views are, repulsive to a lot of mainstream voters. So I think what's going to happen is they're going to have to try and the AfD have got an opportunity, a unique opportunity, to create a space for themselves.
Alternative for Deutschland.
The Alternative for Deutschland, the right-wing party, yeah.
Yeah. Let's shift very quickly to the Volkswagen emissions scandal. Peter, how much is this hurting Merkel? How much or is this Teflon for her?
Oh, I think it's really unfair to blame this on Merkel. This is a problem for one particular company.
But it's her government that's in charge and watching the industry.
Well, okay, but I think it's a failure of supervision. But it's so remote from the actual Chancellor that I don't think this is going to get her into trouble in any way, to be honest.
Jo, how much is this hurting Merkel?
No, it's not good for Germany. I mean, we had a clean image, and now this image is a bit fragile. And of course, if that continues to the whole car industry, it has repercussions to the politics and somehow politics in Germany.
It's also hurting perhaps her stature when she goes to Paris for the climate summit.
Yeah, I think it is. At a time when she's taken a principled stand on, what a lot of people say is a principled stand on immigration, when she made a very dramatic policy decision on nuclear power, she's kind of being undermined by the fact that Germany's technological prowess and transparency, crucially, on such an important issue, has been undermined by a private company.
And how much are we feeling this now on a European level? In terms of European leadership, because so many people look to the powerfrau to be settling certain issues and scores and crises. Jo, what are you seeing here on the ground in Brussels?
Donald Tusk, the president of the European Council, just spoke out that Germany is the biggest country. It has to have this sort of leadership, and therefore it would be good for Europe that the German government is still strong and not breaking apart, because we have so many governments that are weak and struggling at the edge of existing.
Right, so Merkel weakened. What kind of impact is that on the European level, Peter?
Well, at the end of the day, if the German government would collapse prematurely, most likely if the refugee crisis would escalate, then this would lead to a change, I think, at the European level. And it would not necessarily be for the worse. I think it's good that some of the taboos that have been troubling effective policy for years now are finally being thrown overboard. And also in the EU debate, for example, the UK agenda of Cameron, this could really be something that addresses some of the problems in France with the far right. So I think that would necessarily not be a bad thing.
You see it that way, Stephen?
I personally think the problem is there are no obvious other candidates to lead Europe at the moment.
Yeah.
David Cameron is possibly leaving Europe. Spanish leader Rajoy possibly leaving office. François Hollande has limitations to his power to lead Europe anyway. Who else is going to do it? Don't know if it's going to be someone in Brussels.
Who else, Jo?
Yeah, I don't think there are taboos. If we endanger the Schengen system, if we really endanger the monetary system, what is left? We have then the Europe of nations. We are closing borders. We are renationalizing policies. Is that a good answer to the future of a globalized world, Europe in a globalized world? So I hope that still we can manage as well the refugee crisis, as hard as it is, as we have done with the financial crisis.
Thanks, Jo. That's all the time we've got for now. I'd like to thank our guests, Jo Leinen, Peter Kleppe, and Stephen Brown. I'm Chris Burns. And until next time, thanks for connecting with The Network.